And good afternoon and good evening, depending on when this video finds you. Just want to talk briefly today about a subject that all of us are aware of. Some of us know it's not true, but a great deal of society has been conditioned to believe it to be true. And that issue is who commits most of the crime. Now, the statistics I'm going to give you are not statistics I made up. They come from the FBI's website. And you don't have to take anything I say as gospel truth. I've always been an advocate for telling you to do your own research. Now, I will admit that these are some notes I did research on before my hospital stint. So that was before January of this year, 2022. And so things might have changed a little bit since then, but it still paints a pretty clear picture of who's committing most of the crime. I wrote in my book, But Hey, What Do I Know, which is available through me at myronjones at gmail.com and Amazon and Barnes& and Noble and the publisher, Ex Libris, that when we hear about crime, the first thing that comes to people's mind is he must have been black. And as I stated, one night here in the city I live in, there were, I believe, 11 different shooting incidents. And they only mentioned the race in 7 of them. No, or was it 4? I can't remember off the top of my head. But the only ones they mentioned a race in was where the perpetrator was a black guy. And so if you want to know if the person was black or not, all you have to do is listen to the people who are reporting it. And they'll tell you if they were black or not. If they don't mention the race, they were white. And we don't want to believe that because for so many years, so many centuries, we've been looked down on as the dregs of society. You have a group of people out there who said the black race was cursed, and and they put that propaganda in front of everybody, and all these other races look at us as the lowest of the low in society. Martin Luther King said, let's follow Gandhi's teachings, but Gandhi hated black people. If you ever read any of Gandhi's writings, he used the word kafir with the K quite a bit, Kafir. Kafir meant black person, well, Negro, whatever you want to call it. And so we sit here promoting Gandhi. We sit here and we promote these other people. And all of these people hated blacks. And they teach society that blacks are not to be respected. Oh, they'll respect their favorite athlete. They'll respect their favorite entertainer. But then you have an incident like what happened with Will Smith and Chris Rock, so they can go ahead and, paint an image of, they still got that in them. And so we don't look at other people the same way we look at blacks. And, a good friend of mine, originally from Panama, we were talking one day and he was talking about when they first got to America. He said everybody of other races treated them differently. He said, it was something they weren't used to in Panama. They treated them like they treat American blacks. He said once they found out they were originally from Panama, he said everybody's attitude toward them changed. So it's not all black people, it's just the American black that the world has been conditioned that are criminals, gangster, lazy, thugs, and all this other stuff. And it still amazes me and puzzles me to this day how the American black, which is really and truly Jacob's tribe of Judah built everything that sustained and created wealth in America free of charge, but we get labeled as lazy. That's amazing to me. I mean, I've worked with a lot of lazy people, not just black. I've worked with lazy Hispanics. I've worked with lazy whites. I've worked with lazy Asian Indians. Hey, I don't care. If you're lazy, you're lazy. And I've also worked with some hardworking blacks. I've also worked with some hardworking whites. I've worked with some hardworking Hispanics. I've worked with some hardworking Asian Indians. I've worked with some hardworking Chinese. And yeah, you got some lazy Chinese too. And but it's amazing to me that the black face is the face for everything that's wrong in society. Now let me ask a question: with everything that's going on in the world right now, what color is the head of the World Economic Forum? What color is the head of Microsoft? What color is the guy who said he wants to put chips in your brain so AI can merge with the human brain? I mean, think about it. Ain't none of them guys black. What color is the top doctor, according to the government and the media, who's telling us all of this stuff that's supposed to be good for us? I mean, it ain't none of us. It ain't no black person. But we look at black people as the problem. And if you one of those people that think black people are the problem, you're racist. All of us are prejudiced in different things, but if you think black people are the problems in society, black people commit the crime in society, you are a racist. And I'm just going to call you like it is. Because 70% of whites say, well, let me see. Let me read this the right way, because I had to write them down. Like I said, these some notes I came across. I was going through some paperwork the other day. 70% of the people serving times for crimes against children are white. 70%. Now, like I said, you can go behind me, chick. Like I said, the numbers might have fluctuated since I did this, and I can't say exactly what part before January of this year I pull this information. When I take notes and write notes down, I don't put down the date I did it. I just write notes. And my wife told me the other day when I was going through this paperwork, well, she was the one that had me going through the paperwork. Then she was like, "Boy, you just write on everything." Because I'll write on a piece of paper. I write on cardstock. She said, "Do you need all these index cards?" I write on post-it notes. If something comes in the mail, I write notes on that envelope. I have tablets all over the place because I'll write notes on everything. I know a lot of people, are more technologically advanced now, and they like to type into their phones or their laptops or desktops or whatever they're using, the tablets. But I didn't take typing in school. So typing doesn't work as fast as my brain, but writing does. And I can write a whole lot faster than I can type and keep up with my brain. So, yeah, I write on everything. And so, like I said, I'm not going to date it. And because thoughts come into my mind all the time, and I'm going to capture those thoughts because I read years ago that if you woken up in the middle of the night because some thought is on your mind, you need to keep a notepad next to your bed so you can capture that thought, because more than likely when you wake up thinking you're going to remember what that thought was, it's going to be gone from you. And so that became a big thing for me, keeping a note tablet next to the bed, because I'll go to, and I'll, even though I know this, I read this, I'll still tell myself right before I go to bed, I'll think about something. I say, okay, I remember it in the morning. Next morning coming, I don't forgot it. I don't even know what it was I was thinking about. I don't even know what subject matter it was that I was thinking about. But 86% of pedophiles are white. Now, and when I give these stats, I'm not excusing behavior from anybody else that engages in these activities. I'm just trying to tell you the picture that's been painted in society is not black. 67.2% of rapists are white. 63.7% of aggravated assaults are committed by whites. 67.6% of burglaries are committed by whites. 69.1% of larceny committed by whites. 73.1% of arsonists are white. And when I was going through these notes the other day, and I told my wife I came across it, I said, think about arson. I say, I'm pretty sure it's some out there. I say, but have you ever heard or seen a black person that's an arsonist? I said, we too scared of fire. We ain't fit to take no chance and pour no gasoline or whatever fire starter fluid is out there and get no matches or some other mechanism to light a fire. I say, because we scared we're gonna get burned. But, and I mean, society knows it. Society just don't want to admit what's right in front of their eyes. Because the last thing they want to do is let their friends of the same skin color think that they believe and think and know differently than the rest of the collective. So they have to keep up that facade so their friends don't know that they don't believe that stuff. 66.5 of motor vehicle theft committed by whites. And they'll put movies out there and they'll put it on TV, I got carjacked by a black guy. And I mean, I talk about a lot of instances, a lot of different scenarios, true scenarios in my book that happened. Like, I think the guy's name was Mac Brown. Years ago, got arrested for being something, and it's always amazing they can make up crimes for black people. He got arrested for being an eye rapist. An eye rapist. EYE rapist. And what does that mean? They said he looked at this white woman with the intent to rape her. I mean, folks, you can't make some of this stuff up. Black men would get thrown in jail years ago for whistling. Black men would get thrown in jail years ago for trying to find a job. Black men would get thrown in jail years ago for walking the wrong way down the side of a street. I mean, come on. But who's making up all of these rules? White people. And you got to do a little bit more research to find out what white people I'm talking about. 68.8% of property crime committed by white folks. And see, we always want to look at, blacks, doing all this to each other. Well, and it's true. I'm a big advocate against doing crime against each other. Especially people that live in the same neighborhood as you. But if the majority of what I'm reading you is committed by white folks, a lot of that stuff is being done against white folks. So we don't say black on black crime, but you got white on white crime as well. So 65.4% of other assaults are committed by whites. Now they didn't list what those other assaults were on the site, and so you probably, if you interested, you'd have to look that up yourself. 63.8% of forgery and counterfeiting are done by whites. See, that stuff doesn't get a whole lot of play because it's considered white collar crime. And see, you got a lot of them out there. I saw a video just a week ago and the guy was showing how to make counterfeit money. And he had some kind of solution and hair dry and a few other things. And I'm like, he didn't show his face, but you could see his hands. Guess what color he was? He wasn't black. 66.1% of fraud is committed by whites. I saw a story the other day. And when I say whites, I'm not just talking about men. This woman, this old elderly white guy had hadn't been seen in a while. But they said, this guy served in, you know, um, World War II and living, I think he might have been in his 80s at the time. And they said, he lived a very frugal lifestyle, had never married or anything. And they said all of a sudden, they seeing his account shows he went paid $44,000 for a BMW. And then his account shows he turned around and sold his house for so many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then his money in the bank started dwindling. And then they saw his monthly pension and social security checks were being delivered to a P.O. box in another state. And come to find out, a white woman had killed him. White woman had bought that car. White woman had sold his house for the money. White woman had been taking all of his money out of the bank. A white woman was going to that P.O. box every month, getting his checks and cashing them. And when the police confronted her, she said, "Well, I'm his daughter." Well, the problem was he didn't have any children. 61.9% of embezzlement is created by whites. And I mean, yeah, they threw Bernie Madoff out there in front of us. Every now and then the system will throw you a sacrificial lamb, just like they did with Epstein. And but they'll throw you a sacrificial lamb out depending on the situation. 70.1% of vandalism is created by whites. Now that's amazing to me because almost every time you hear about vandalism, they're showing you young Hispanic guys that are tagging and doing all of that stuff. But these government stats say 70.1% are white. But you never see the white ones. And then when a lot of times when the white ones get caught vandalizing, they'll say they're just expressing their artistic side. See, they always got an excuse for white behavior. But everybody else, same behavior gets labeled as criminal. 68.9% of drug abuse is by whites. See, long as crack was prevalent out there, black people were put on the face as the face of drugs. But my dad told me years ago when I was growing up, he talked about how cocaine was a party drug for white people. And cocaine was still prevalent among white people, but crack became the forefront of all drugs because crack was done mainly by black people. You think about heroin, you think about meth. You got a few blacks out there to do it, but who's the majority of the users of that stuff? When you think about opium, who's the largest users of that? That's your far eastern people that are the biggest users of that stuff. But the face of drugs is put on black people for one item and one item only: crack cocaine. And I have a video on this channel where I talk about how the Congressional Black Caucus wasn't no better than the system, because the Congressional Black Caucus ain't nothing but managers of black people for the system anyway. But I'm not even here to talk about that. I got a video on the channel if you wanna go check that out. 64.4% of crimes against family members happen with white people. 83.7 of your DUIs are white people. 80.9% of drunkenness, white people. And 63% of your disorderly conduct comes from white people. So if I've given you a list, let's see, how many items did I list? One. I've given you a list of 19 things where white people are the largest perpetrators. I mean, outside of what I've listed, how many other major crimes do you have? I mean, I didn't even talk about your serial killers, but I got a video on this channel where I talk about who your serial killers are. Yeah, you got a few black ones out there, but you're going to be hard pressed to name one. But you can name a Jeffrey Dahmer off the top of your head. You can name a Charles Manson off the top of your head. You can name a Jim Jones off the top of your head. Yeah, Jim Jones was a serial killer. But y'all didn't know the CIA gave him an award for doing such great humanitarian work over black people. See, they don't teach you that aspect. The government was in bed with Jim Jones. And see, y'all don't want to believe this stuff. It's just like I asked the question several weeks back, why is it that things going on against the countries where you have brown and black skinned people don't gain any sympathy, but things going on against these blue-eyed blonde-haired people in the Ukraine is getting sympathy? See, we don't want to talk about that. You know, one lady told me she can't believe, well, I don't remember her exact words, but basically what she's saying, she couldn't believe I stooped to that level. And I can't really believe that. Well, she's white. White people are always going to see things through a different lens than black people because, well, in many cases, they haven't experienced what black people have experienced. They haven't been treated like black people have been treated. And I'm not saying white people all get privilege and passes and all that, but on the whole, through society, if society sees a black guy walking toward them, especially a white woman, if she or Asian woman or Hispanic woman, if they see a black guy walking toward them, they're going to grab their purse a little bit tighter. But if they see a white guy walking toward them, they're going to keep that purse relaxed, even if that black man is in a suit and carrying a briefcase or something, because society has told them black is not to be trusted. And we just don't want to admit the truth. See, you're going to have to get into some deeper study, some biblical study, and understand the nature of all groups. See, Esau descendants, the Bible said that's their nature. Now, I'm not saying all of them, but as a whole, the Bible says that's their nature to do everything I just mentioned to you. That is their nature. When we look at homosexuality, we got all these black faces put on front of us and on the screen. It's hard pressed to find a television show now where it's not some aspect of homosexuality in it. And most of the time, it's going to be a black face pushing a homosexuality agenda. But it's more white people engaged in that stuff than black people. Black people are a very small percentage, but they use them. You know, I don't care what TV show you watch, you're going to find throughout some of that show at some point, you're going to have a black person talking about their same sex mate or whatever, male and female. But white people are the biggest purveyors of that behavior. But society would have you believe that black people are promoting and pushing everything. Well, the problem with that is black people don't control the networks. And yeah, we got one out there that, well, y'all love him, so I'm gonna just keep that to myself. I ain't saying no names, so you can guess or try to guess or speculate or whatever you want to do. But we got to stop this, and I know for some of y'all, it ain't gonna ever change because that's just ingrained in you. That's who you are. And I mean, I believe each person can change, but you know, we've all heard the saying a leopard ain't gonna change his spots. A leopard can't change his spots. And so it's just like who is in your inner circle? Who do you attend church with? And you know, a few weeks ago, it was a sermon pastor his sermon on racism. And I was kind of disappointed because, I've studied this stuff actively. And so I was expecting a little bit more out of the white and black pastors. But if I guess I haven't got to the point now where I guess my expectations are too high for a lot of people. So, I've talked long enough on this subject area here, but it's just troubling to me that we always get painted as the dregs of society and everybody else is respected. And if you look at a lot of the good that's happening in society among humanity, and like I said, I'm not excusing any black behavior that's bad. But if you look at a lot of the things where somebody is saving or doing something nice for other people, a lot of times it's a black person doing for other folks. You know, but society will point that out, oh, he must be a diamond in the rough. No, a great majority of us are that way. We don't publicize that behavior because, I believe in the Bible, when you do things, you do it in secret. I was watching a video the other day, and the woman was white, and it turned me off listening to her talk. And she said, her and her family were up in Seattle, and she was talking about the homeless situation. And she said they had went into this restaurant and got some food and got some coffee. She said they wanted to try all the different coffee places in Seattle, since Seattle is, supposed to be like the birthplace of all the coffee. And so she didn't eat all the food, hadn't finished the coffee, and she asked for a to-go container. And she gets a to-go container. Then there's a homeless person outside the restaurant where her and her family are leaving. And so she walks up to the homeless person and gives him the food and coffee. And she talks about how appreciative he was. And my thoughts are, why you want to give somebody something you've eaten off of and you've put your lips on and drank out of? And she said, yeah, and then we went to the next coffee place and I got another coffee. So if you went to the next place to try this coffee, why you couldn't go back inside and buy this person a fresh cup of coffee, buy this person a fresh meal? But you want to give him something you've eaten out of. You want to give him something you drink out of. And you know, I remember I I was coming home one year after Thanksgiving. It was a Thanksgiving day, and I must have went to my aunt's house or my grandmother's house. I don't remember whose house I was coming from. And I stopped to get gas, and I saw a guy outside the gas station. I didn't know if he was homeless or not, but he looked like he was, and he looked like he was hungry. And I didn't say anything to him. I filled up, I got in my car because my wife cooks for every holiday. And I came home and I told my wife, I said, hey, fix me a plate of food. I said, and fix me a plate of dessert. And she said, well, what's going on? I said, well, there was a guy up at the gas station. I said, he looked like he was hungry. And so I went back and took this guy this food. And I'm not telling anybody this to brag on. I'm just saying there's a difference in mentality. That guy was so appreciative. He said, he said, sir, he said, I went to the homeless shelter today. And I mean, he didn't even wait. He didn't even use the fork, the plasticware I brought him. He just started eating right then and there. He was so appreciative. He said, I went by the homeless shelter today. He said, I was able to get something to eat. He said, but man, he said, you can tell in places like that, there's really no love when they cook. He said, man, I can tell a person who fixed this food did it out of love. He said, it has flavor in it. And then there's another time I I was a vendor at this event, and there was a guy there I knew who had his barbecue pit set up. And before he left, he didn't sell all of his turkey legs, and he said, Myron, you want a turkey leg? I said, yeah, I'll take a turkey leg. And the guy could really barbecue, so I was anticipating eating that turkey leg when I got home. I just left it wrapped until I was going to leave it wrapped until I got home. And so I stopped to get gas again, and there's another guy outside. He had a bicycle, but obviously he was homeless. And I went up to him and just started talking with him. I didn't tell him what I wanted, and I said, "Man," I said, "Are you hungry?" He said, "Man, I haven't eaten in a couple of days." And I said, "Oh, I'll be right back." And I went back and I handed him that turkey leg, and he was so appreciative. And I mean, like I said, I'm not telling you these stories to brag. I'm just telling you there's a difference in the way white people do things and black people. Now, am I saying all black people like that? No. Am I saying all white people like that? No. But I'm not going to hand a person food I've eaten off of just to say I did a good deed. And see, I don't tell anybody about those things I've done. It's a lot of things I don't tell people I've done. And Cynthia and I, we've been in situations where we've struggled, and I don't tell anybody about that either because it's not their business. Secondly, they ain't gonna help you. Thirdly, they glad you got the problem. So I said about 6 minutes ago I was gonna shut this off, and I'm talking. This is the longest talk I've done actually since I got at the hospital, and it's like my granddaughter told me. She said, "Well, your voice has gotten much stronger," and a good friend of mine, he told me, he said, "Man," he say, "your voice is a whole lot stronger." And it's amazing. This guy calls and checks on me, and he's going through chemo. He's more concerned about me healing, and he's going through chemo right now. And I was joking with him because going through the chemo for the type of cancer he's battling, he has to take these hormone blocker shots. And I said, "Man, what's up with them hot flashes?" And he and I have that type of relationship where we can kind of jab at each other like that and it not be offensive. But he's more concerned about me getting better. I mean, of course, he's trying to get better as well, but he's more concerned about, "Myron, what's going on with you?" And he's told me, over the years, he said, "Man," and he's much older than me. He's old enough to be my dad. And he said, "Man," he said, "I've lived much longer than you." He said, "But man, every time I call you," he said, "I learn something new." And when he calls, it's gonna be a minimum 1 hour call every time he calls. And "Okay, Myron, I got my hour in. Okay, Myron, I got an hour and a half out of you today." And it's just precious to have relationships like that. And I don't know about many of you because I was telling my physical therapist on yesterday, a great deal of the problem we're dealing with in society is we're seeing it now, especially because it's on full display. Too many people are narcissists. They're selfish, and I mean, you can be selfish in a good way, and you can be selfish in a bad way. Most people are selfish in a bad way, and so I got another guy, and he calls me, and, sends me a text, "Hey brother, how you coming along? How you and Cynthia doing? You getting better? How you doing?" And and this guy's a white guy, and I'm always checking on him. "Hey man, how you and your wife doing? How's her business going? How's it going at work?" That's just who we are. And so, like I said, I can't paint every individual with that same brushstroke. But unfortunately, most of the people in society do the exact opposite. And so, like I said, you got to come up off of that if that's in you. There's a book I read sometime back by a guy named Andrew Hacker, and the name of that book is Two Nations. If you really want an eye-opening experience, read that book, Two Nations. And he talks about how we're actually separate and unequal, white versus black. He talks about black men are painted as the scum of society when it comes to looking after their children if they're not married to the mother. He said, but white men are the biggest defaulters on child support in society. Now, Andrew Hacker's a white guy. So Andrew Hacker paints a whole lot of pictures and images in there, and he puts a whole lot of stats in there that shows you, hey, black people, black men, black society is being treated this way by white America, but black people ain't the problem. And like I said, he's a white guy. And so we don't understand stuff like that because we don't want to. I can sit here and give you book after book after book. And if your mind is just locked into what your mind is locked in, you ain't going to ever open a book because you want to believe what you want to believe and you don't want anybody damaging that illusion. And it's sickening. And then you want to take that illusion and then you want to keep pushing that on other people so they can think just like you. It's like my mentor told me years ago. I was riding to Baton Rouge with him. He was going to do a business seminar, and I asked could I ride with him. Well, first I told him I was going to just drive over there, just to be in support of him. He said, "Man, it don't make sense to drive no two vehicles over there. Won't you just ride with me?" And so we were talking in travel, and we were just talking about the things that we do today to try to make our plans succeed for the day, because he's a big advocate on something called winning the day. WIN, win the day. And it's like, say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Well, you can't get the elephant out the room unless you break it down into smaller pieces. But we were talking, and I was talking about, one of the things I look out for each day was somebody who thinks like me. And he said, "Man," he said, "you ain't having no conversations, are you?" And I said, "How did you know?" He said, "Man," he said, "I've talked to you." He said, "You ain't gonna find nobody that think like you." And he wasn't saying it in a bad way. And he just went on to explain. He said, "Man," he said, "you do depth of research and study that I've never seen on from many people." And see, I make my videos and things like that. I might post a few things on social media, but I don't touch the surface of most of the stuff I research. Because if I started talking about some of the stuff I actually really, really research, you know, I would get flagged for everything. Because society, certain people in society, want to keep images up. It's like you got the people over in Israel right now trying to go into the Ukraine. And I told people that's what was going on with Ukraine, because Ukraine used to be called Khazars. So the people in Israel are trying to go back home. That's why the Ukraine situation is happening. And people just don't understand. If I started talking about some of this stuff, I would get flagged as I would get flagged as racist, I would get flagged as prejudiced, I would get flagged as homophobe, I would get flagged as everything because I'm talking about the truth. And nowadays truth is hate speech. And I posted a thing on Facebook the other day. Down here in Texas, there's a toll-free number on the back of your driver's license. And if you're stranded, you can call this 800 number. And I think when I reposted it from somebody else who said you can call and a state trooper show up and a tow truck is a call to assist you, and it said, and if you need be, you can get towed for free. And social media flagged me. Well, our fact checkers determined that you can't get towed for free, so you promoting partly false information. Okay, the whole idea behind the post was, if you're stranded, you can call this number and get help. Hey, I didn't call the 800 number and ask them, could you get towed for free or not? I wasn't stranded. But let me ask you something. If you stranded, especially across Texas, I mean, you can drive across Texas and 12 hours later, you still in Texas. And if you're stranded, it's 3, 4 in the morning. You out on one of these long stretches in Texas. I don't think you care if you can get towed free or not, long as somebody comes to your aid. And so the whole purpose of me posting that was you can get assistance. And here I go. I'm still talking. I'm going to go in and cut this off right at this 40-minute mark. Talk to you later.